spring, and in her palm a halcyon sits patient, the secret splendor of the brooks. Tennyson's halcyon, the symbol of calm and tranquil waters, is as elusive as it is shy. Yet you may glimpse it, along with other river creatures, when the season of courting and breeding begins. And for sheer brilliance of colour, what other British bird can match these kingfishers? Furthermore, both sexes keep their splendour all year round. It's early March. These birds have paired, and confident that their liquid territory is well stocked with minnow, stickleback and gudgeon, they are hard at work excavating their nest hole in the riverbank prior to mating. They're digging out the metre-long tunnel and secret chamber where their eggs will be laid. Beaks are powerful tools for tunnelling, and they drive them in hard, spearing and stabbing to loosen the soil. Nests like this can be washed away in spring floods, but this tunnel is well above the water level. With their specially shaped feet, the kingfishers rake up the soil and sweep it from the tunnel. The cockbird with the all-black beak has stopped digging. Excited and eager to mate, he courts the hen with a succulent prenuptial fish. It's offered head first, ready for swallowing. But until the nest is ready, the hen is bound to resist his advances. And she's off down the tunnel again to dig. Oh well, pity to waste it. Tunnelling requires a lot of energy. Even sharing the work, it still takes them nearly a week to dig out the nest. From the back, both sexes look alike, but the adult hen has a rosy lower bill. She will know instinctively when to accept the courtship gift. Her mate just has to be patient and persevere. Until then, her most vital activity is excavating in the dark earth. Judging from the pile of soil, the nest must be nearly finished. The cock seems to think so, and this time the hen accepts the fish, but has turned it round as if to return it to him. Nature is full of surprises, and bird courtship is as complex as it is beautiful. He seems surprised too. The hen is now swallowing the fish the wrong way, tail first, and the ritual must be repeated. With eyes closed and a mere third of a second underwater, he's caught her another fish. But there's many a slip, and findings keeping. Nevertheless, the cock still attempts to mate, but the hen requires proper courting. And yet another fish. Could this be the perfect proposal? It's not just ritual. Courtship strengthens the bond between them and stimulates the hen to produce eggs, while the fish provides the essential calcium and protein she needs to make them. During mating, the cock steadies himself by holding on to the hen's crown feathers. They will mate several times a day, and each day an egg will be laid on the bare earth of the secret chamber. Time now for some feather care. Cleaning and waterproofing the gorgeous plumage is an essential routine. Indeed, lives depend on it. Deep in the riverbank, the incubation of the precious eggs has begun. The birds share the duties during the day, each one spending about 3 hours at a time on the eggs. while at night, it's the hen who sits. 3 weeks of waiting. New life everywhere, and at last, dropped in the stream, the telltale sign that in the dark habitation above, the kingfishers have also hatched. Born on the cold earth, with no cozy nest around them, the naked chicks are pathetically vulnerable, and their parents take it in turn to keep them warm and snug. This blind and hungry chick senses food. It's a poignant moment. The hen would like to feed it, but all she holds in her beak is regurgitated fish bones, which would hardly appease its hunger. Each baby chick requires about 3 small fish a day. The fish are brought frequently, and the hungriest chick is fed first. They're delivered head first, with their prickly spines flattened so as not to choke the babies. Minnows are the commonest prey, but sticklebacks and bullheads are often on the menu. The hen is nearly ready for a fish supper too, leaving behind a tangle of pink flesh. Many mouthfuls here for an inquisitive rat or stoat, but hidden down the hole, the defenseless young are fairly safe from enemies. This underground chamber will be their home for the next 25 days. It may seem spacious now, but there'll be quite a crush as the nestlings grow. They develop quickly, and within a week they'll be taking fish almost as big as those their parents eat. At one time, trout fishermen looked on kingfishers as competitors and slaughtered them ruthlessly. Ironically, the feathers were used as flies to lure trout. Now it's illegal to trap or destroy these lovely birds. Trout may not be a kingfisher's favorite food, but when it's an easy option, they'll take it. And who can blame them? An unnetted trout hatchery becomes a kingfisher's supermarket. But not all kingfishers are quite so fortunate. Some find themselves outside the wire and have to be satisfied with window shopping. Oh, look at them, and he only wanted 1 or 2. A garden pool, just the place for rare delicacies. Fish in a confined area are usually easy prey, but once more, it's the undercover story. The treasured goldfish are protected by netting and stone security guards. He thought he was going to strike it rich. It's just not his day for winning the pools. Success at last, and it's trout. However, providing for 7 gaping beaks isn't always easy. There are times when fish are almost non-existent, killed by pollution. Worst of all are the chemical weed killers that slowly poison fish and ultimately harm young birds as well. At 8 days old, these are thriving. Hearing the call, as the cock flies in with the fish, the hungriest chicks push forward, leaving the sleepy, contented ones at the back of the nest. The chicks still need brooding to keep them warm, but their own feather quills are forming. The dark spikes are clearly visible under the skin. In the past, it was thought that kingfishers deliberately constructed a nest of fish bones on which to lay their eggs. In fact, the regurgitated bones are thrown up by both parents and young. Spread and then trodden under and around the chicks, they accumulate, giving the impression of a nest, which explains the fallacy. Fish scales on a branch, or the undigested fish bones dropped on the water weeds, are often the only clues to the kingfisher's presence. At 14 days old, dressed in their coats of quill, the youngsters look quite extraordinary, like little knights in armour. And quill, like armour, must take some getting used to. Not the most comfortable gear for lounging about the nest hole, but certainly the most practical. Their feathers remain sheathed in quill to protect them from the litter of stinking fish bones and excrement. One day, fine feathers will make fine birds. At the moment, they're hardly the image of their beautiful parents, who now dive till dusk to catch the 30 or more fish a day these birds demand. And how they demand. In their spiky jackets, this up-and-coming bird group squawk their latest release. And the clamour from the nest can be heard for some distance outside the riverbank, spurring the parents on to plunge for yet more provisions. River traffic, however, can cause the occasional hold-up. The kingfisher must wait for the water vole to pass before diving for fish. A highly skilled predator, the dive epitomizes beauty and efficiency. Even slowed down 20 times, the kingfisher flashes like a missile towards its prey. Hello, competition. Kingfishers keep an eye on strangers in their territory, and hovering humans are watched warily. But are we humans as aware of kingfishers and of their needs? Bank clearance and dredging along a river can totally remove essential perches and nesting sites, so necessary for the bird's survival. But here, the removal of gravel creates an amenity suitable for both kingfisher and man. Careful landscaping around these wide expanses provides new sites for kingfishers, while the water is enjoyed by everyone. Canals are also man-made, and despite the traffic, many kingfishers will nest along them and fish from their banks, though discarded fishing lines and hooks have proved lethal to some birds. However, anglers do on occasion provide a good perch, And for the girl along the bank, oil can be expensive, but not for the kingfisher. He produces his own for preening. Kingfishers pair for life and jealously defend their territory. A sudden takeover bid by another pair calls for aggressive posturing, and the intruders have to be seen off. The combat begins with the kingfishers on opposite perches, where they wait for the right moment to fire themselves at their rivals. The aim is to catch the opponent off balance and to knock him down into the water. Birds have been killed in conflicts like this. Each pair of kingfishers requires a minimum length of river in which to fish and raise their young, so there's only room enough for a limited number of territories. Competition is fierce and the prime sites go quickly. The fittest birds retain or take over the fishing grounds. The losers are banished to less exclusive fishing. Most pairs attempt to breed twice in a season, and even before his first brood have left the nest, the cock starts burrowing a new hole ready for his second family. Some pairs with good fishing territories have been known to raise as many as 3 or even 4 families in one season. With the cock digging another tunnel, the hen is left to feed the young in the nest. At 21 days, they've shed their quills and are fully feathered. At last, there's the promise of the dazzling turquoise beauty that is to come. Most of their time is spent preening and stretching their wings. Only a few more days of home comforts are left, for any morning now, at the first glimmer of dawn, they'll be off, leaving the rank and foul nest of their own accord. The tunnel is now so smelly and slippery that the parent birds tumble out backwards, straight into the stream, to bathe. Newly fledged kingfishers are less colourful than their parents, with short black beaks and black feet. They bob and chirp to attract their parents' attention and scatter along the stream in 2s and 3s. Soon their inborn aggressiveness will show itself and the squabbles will begin. Occasionally, a parent bird fails to recognise its own offspring and meets out the treatment reserved for rivals, which must be hard on the young being attacked. The hen is still trying to drive her own fledglings away, but instinctively they sit tight and hungrily demand to be fed. Fortunately for them, this triggers the right response from the cock, so all is well. They'll be fed for 2 or 3 days, if their parents can find them, but to survive, they must learn quickly how to fend for themselves. It's a sad fact that only about 1/4 of all young kingfishers live long enough to breed. Such is the way of nature. The new experience of roosting and the chill of a first night in the open. bright new world of the riverbank is fraught with danger. Learning about life can be short-lived. Inexperienced kingfishers drown in the whirlpools by the mill. They dive too often with damp feathers, which then become waterlogged and they sink. Some get caught in weeds. A fledgling may dive 20 times before it makes a catch, whereas an adult has a success rate of 1 in 3. Death may be from starvation, sheer exhaustion, or cold. Survival depends on learning how to fish and where. Birds are also killed when they fly across roads in their territory. And it's even on record that one young kingfisher, desperate for fish, drowned in a jar of tiddlers on the riverbank. Good fishing grounds are highly sought after, especially when your own post is provided. On the river, everyone wants a stretch of their own, with fishing rights strictly preserved. This is certainly a beakful, but you should have seen the one that got away. The aptly named bullhead is strong. Unless those fins are completely flat, the bird could choke. Even so, exceptionally large fish can be swallowed, given this sort of treatment. So while the anglers compete for the trout, the battle for bullheads is strictly between kingfishers. There's such a lot to learn, but already the art of fishing on the main river has been mastered. Summer heat, the fragrance of flowers, and the silent kingfishers scan the shallows for fish, dodging the territory holders. When they spot each other, they take up fear-inspiring poses, pushing their beaks forward to intimidate. August and September are critical months for inexperienced juveniles. They're driven out by long-established pairs from one territory after another. The survivors tend to move on downstream, and if challenged whilst fishing, become very aggressive. Many make their way to warmer places, the salt marshes, estuaries and harbours, where they'll spend the winter. Historically, kingfishers are regarded as a symbol of peace and serenity. In classical mythology, the kingfisher, named Halcyon, nested on the open sea, quelling the waves till the eggs hatched, hence the term halcyon days. Even so, the kingfisher looks strangely out of place amongst the seaweed. And yet, when plunging in the rock pools for prawns and fish, the gorgeous plumage is seen to best advantage, changing with the light and shade. According to legend, it was a grey bird when released by Noah from the ark, but flying high to the west, its breast was scorched by the setting sun, and its back took on the many colours of the evening sky. Now it's mid-November, the little summer of St. Martin. As it draws to an end, the last embers of sun and warmth fade, and St. Martin's bird, so conspicuous at this time, faces the rigours of winter. Nature is ruthless. Only the fittest will get through, and the wind blows cold. To make a catch, the kingfisher needs clear water. Fish become invisible in swirling, murky floods. Food is hard to find. Even the sea has been known to freeze over in harsh winters. With their larder locked under the ice, many birds die, weakened by starvation, frozen to death. During the severe winter of 1981-82, for example, 2/3 of the kingfishers on Britain's waterways perished. Even with mild winters, it will take 4 to 5 years for the species to recover its numbers. When winter ends, the surviving young kingfishers blossom into the rich plumage of maturity and make their way upstream again to mate and to breed. So should you glimpse a kingfisher, Tennyson's secret splendor, a blue dart above the stream, remember the bird's birth underground and its brilliance underwater. For these are the real secrets, the spectacle and the splendor of the brooks.
Winter on the Ouse washes in the east of England. And one of the most typical winter birds of the fen country, a short-eared owl, sets off to quarter the meadows in search of prey. Unlike most owls, this bird is a daylight hunter. Its favorite prey is the short-tailed vole, but it takes other small mammals and also small birds. The green finches must be on guard against other potential predators too, like this hen harrier. The weather affects the owl's hunting prospects considerably. Floods are common in winter and even in springtime, reducing the habitat available to the small mammals on which the owl feeds. Some will be drowned, while others move to higher and drier spots, like this short-tailed vole. Some owls move away, but others remain and perhaps briefly enjoy a short-lived concentration of prey. There are other hunters too, like this stoat in his winter coat of ermine. The stoat has been successful this time, but for this short-eared owl, the hunt goes on. The daylight is fading fast, but the owl drifts on over the quiet fields. Winter is almost over. Time for the owls to move on. An area of young conifer plantation and moorland edge in southern Scotland. Classic short-eared owl nesting and hunting habitat in open country where several pairs may nest in years when conditions are right. Owls are already back on territory. Other birds are attracted to the area too, like this kestrel. This habitat provides perfect conditions for short-tailed voles until the trees grow taller and thicker and finally swallow up the rough grassland. Until that time, it is perfect for owls and kestrels alike. Short-eared owl numbers and breeding success are clearly geared to the 4-year population cycles of short-tailed voles. The owls naturally do best in vole years when numbers of these tiny animals reach their peak, a simple matter of the food supply calling the tune. But whether it's a good or bad vole year, the hunting owl's technique varies little. Still the same patient quartering of the ground, with those amazingly sharp eyes and super-sensitive ears ready to detect the slightest telltale movement or sound. For the short-tailed vole, survival must depend on using its own senses to the full and being constantly alert. You can never be too careful. The owls have other things on their minds apart from food at this time of year. A male displays high overhead, while his partner looks on from below. A passing neighbor, who might after all be a potential rival, is tackled in mid-air by the owner of this particular patch of ground. Finally, the intruder is seen off. The triumphant male displays again, clapping his wingtips together as he sails overhead. The pair are now established in their territory and can get down to the serious business of raising a family. Spring has come, and the owls have a nest in a typical well-concealed situation. Other British owls sometimes nest on the ground. Short-eared owls always do so. The eggs are laid at 24-hour intervals, but are incubated from the first one. This means they hatch at similar intervals, so early on, a nest will contain eggs and chicks together. At this stage, the female remains at the nest, while the male hunts for the whole family. Her job is to incubate the remaining eggs, guard and feed the owlets, and keep them warm by gathering them under her wings and into her soft body plumage. Crows are potential trouble to nesting birds, even short-eared owls. But the ever-watchful male has seen this one coming and soon sets off after him. Young owls are not exactly beautiful, and their appearance is not helped much by their huge exposed ear cavities. Beautiful or not, the young are safe enough with such vigilant parents. The male continues his chase, sees off the crow, and can relax again. As the day draws to its close and the owls settle down, other creatures make their appearance. Roe deer, and a drake teal on a nearby pool. He has a mate on eggs somewhere too. Roe deer have no real natural predators to fear after dark, but the teal moves on as a tawny owl comes by. A ghostly white barn owl hunts the open ground, in effect taking over by night the role of vole catcher occupied by short-eared owls and kestrels during the day. Small mammals are thus hunted over the whole 24-hour period by a succession of bird predators. Tawny owls operate in the denser cover, among the trees and bushes. Mice and voles are just as much at risk here as out on the open grassland and moorland. At the first glimmer of morning, blackcock arrive at their display grounds or leks and begin their exaggerated, ritualized sparring. Soon they begin feeding. Their habit of eating the fresh tips of young, growing conifers doesn't exactly endear them to foresters. After sitting close all night, the female owl has been away stretching her wings and preparing for another day's housework. The young still require keeping warm, so she settles down to brood them again and to await the male with the first meal of the day. These early morning feeds are particularly important to the hungry owlets. Several voles may be brought to the nest in quick succession. This explains why the male owl is especially active during the first few hours after sunrise. There will be a lull in his hunting during the middle of the day and another peak of activity in the evening. Here he is. At last. He's brought in his first catch of the day. This is a busy time for the male owl. With a whole family to feed, he has to spend a great deal of time on the wing hunting small mammals. Even when they're plentiful, it takes time. Perhaps he's been lucky this time. Yes, he's carrying prey. And even puts in a bit of wing-clapping display on his way back to the nest, almost as if he's pretty pleased with himself. The prey is transferred from the feet to the bill as he nears the nest. He wastes no time in delivering it to the family before going on his way again. Adult owls and big young can swallow voles whole. But at this stage, the female has to break up the prey into manageable portions and feed it to the small owlets. Back comes the male with another vole. One big owlet has managed to swallow his meal whole. That should keep him happy for a while at least. Not all the voles are eaten right away, and some owls actually keep a larder, which comes in handy when there are so many hungry youngsters about. The weather can be very changeable, especially at this time of year. Owlets soon become wet and chilled in conditions like this if they're not brooded closely, which can leave the female pretty wet. You can see the strangest things out here. Not every part of the vole can be digested. There's a certain amount of indigestible matter, bones, teeth, and fur, which is brought back up through the beak in the form of a compact pellet and dumped. Very interesting. The season advances. And before long, the owlets, some of them still quite small and defenseless, begin to wander out of the nest and scatter in the surrounding vegetation. Even a pair of short-eared owls are no match for some of their natural enemies. A determined fox, for example. So there is a safety factor here. Some owlets have a good chance of survival during a raid if the whole family is not concentrated in one place. This big youngster has found a good spot to hide. Not far away, another pair of owls are less lucky. Their nest has attracted the unwelcome attention of a passing fox. This pair started later and still have eggs. And even though the fox hasn't eaten all of them, that's the end of this nest. Elsewhere, life goes on. The scattered owlets are still entirely dependent on their parents for food, and now the female has joined in the task of hunting and catching prey for a fast-growing family. By now, The biggest young owls are quite capable of dealing with most prey the adults bring them. This has been a good vole year, and hunting has been productive and relatively easy for the old birds, meaning plenty of eggs laid, with plenty of young reared, and more importantly, surviving. Summer is well underway, and elsewhere in the plantation, meadow pipits too are busy collecting insects to feed their own families. They too nest on the ground, usually in very well concealed positions. There are no pellets here, just droppings, removed neatly in their transparent coating. By now, the biggest owlets can almost fly, and copy their parents by sitting out on fences and exposed perches. Although windy days don't help when you're still not too sure of your balance. But a slight loss of dignity is all part of learning and growing up. Before long, he'll be as steady and as strong on the wing as his parents. Curlews are as much part of the scene up here as the owls. This is a fairly late nest, still with eggs. Before long, this watchful parent will have small chicks of her own, which will be able to leave the nest soon after hatching. A tricky time, as they could end up as meals for the owls. The local kestrels have young too, which keep their parents busy satisfying their appetites. The short-tailed vole is generally the favorite prey species in this habitat. High summer and a late owl nest with small young well behind the other family. It will be early autumn before these owlets are on the wing. A hen windchat is gathering food not far away. With the cock playing his part too. So late in the season, this could well be the second family the pair have reared this year. Nest sanitation is just as important to windchats as to meadow pipits. And out goes another fecal sack. Late summer sees the end of the cycle for most of the owls. Scores of voles have been eaten by adult owls and fed to their young, not to mention those taken by kestrels and assorted other predators. But the survivors remain to overwinter in the vole cities and covered runways in the deep grass, ready to breed again and increase their numbers next year. For a while, until the conifers swamp the area, there will be voles and short-eared owls to feed on them. After that, well, there are always new young plantations somewhere else. For now, a few old pellets and an empty nest site are all that remain to remind us that the owls were here. And the now quiet moorland edge is left to the wind and the rain.